Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of my 5 takeaways in the SEC. This is the last week I will be doing it because all we have is two teams playing, Georgia versus Texas, a rematch in the SEC championship game. Please hit that like button, please subscribe, and let's jump right into it. Number one, Texas has the best defense in the country. They gave up 0 points in that game versus Texas A&M. I know the box score and the scoreboard says 7. That was a pick six by Will Lee that had nothing to do with the Texas defense. They actually stood up in this game when they could have given up points. You have the early drive, and really the only drive from A&M. You get down there, they go for it. No good there. You have the punt block from the 19-yard line. You run like 9 plays. You don't get any points from it. Texas stifles them again on 4th down. Really good play by Ethan Burke and Bill Norton up the middle, submarining that play. Texas has been doing this week in and week out in the SEC. You can say whatever you want about the schedule, but they've done it versus everyone they played. They did it versus Georgia. They played very well in that game defensively. Offense did not come to play in that game, and that's what happened in that game. That had nothing to do with the Texas defense. So very impressive overall from the Longhorns, in my opinion. Obviously a little bit biased, as you can tell, but I think they have a good shot next weekend versus Georgia in that rematch because of that defense. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. There's multitude of guys you could point to. Anthony Hill, Jahdae Barron, Malik Muhammad, Leona Lafau, who's played really good this year as a redshirt freshman, come in, played well. David Benda, who Kirk Herbstreit couldn't say his name, played very well. Barron Sorrell played very well. Vernon Broughton destroyed a whole drive by himself. It's a bunch of really good players. I don't think there's a fantastic all-time great player on this defense, but I do think there's a lot of really good ones. Number two, one of these teams is going to get in the college football playoff. Which one? There's a debate for all of them, in my opinion. If you're looking for the hottest team and best team right now, I think that is South Carolina. Actually, I know that is South Carolina. I believe they are one of the 12 best teams playing currently in the country right now. If you're asking me about who has the best resume, I think that is Alabama. If you're asking me who I think should actually get in, it's Ole Miss, and I'll tell you why. So Alabama, they've all played each other. Alabama beat South Carolina. Ole Miss beat South Carolina. Bama beats South Carolina by 2 at home. Ole Miss destroyed South Carolina by 20-plus points on the road in Columbia. So to me, that should matter. I think Ole Miss should get in, personally. And I actually would put South Carolina number 2. They lost Alabama by 2 points on the road. To me, that's not big enough in a head-to-head to determine that solely. And then if you go by schedule, guess what? South Carolina really didn't lose to any bad football teams. They lost to a 9-3 LSU team. Alabama lost to freaking Vanderbilt, who they're a solid football team, but they're 6-6, and they all lost to Oklahoma, one of the worst Oklahoma teams in the past 25 years, who's also 6-6. So to me, if I'm ordering, in my opinion, the way they should go in, it should be Ole Miss, South Carolina, Bama. The funny thing is, I think the committee's going to do it the exact opposite. I think Alabama's going to get in out of these 3. I think South Carolina would be 2 and Ole Miss would be 3. That's my opinion. Leave yours in the comments if you disagree with that. I mean, it's hard to tell, guys. And I don't know. I think I know what the committee's going to do, but I don't know what the committee's going to do. Mark Stoops has to go. Kentucky is 4-8 this year. They have too much talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially to be 4-8. You have Deion Walker. You have Barry and Brown on offense. You have guys like that, Pop Dumas Johnson, Malik Harrison at the cornerback position. This team should have been better than 4-8. I predicted them to go the complete opposite. I thought they'd go 8-4. I thought their floor was 6-6. I thought that's what kind of Mark Stoops had established at Kentucky, of like, that's the worst you're going to do. Apparently, I was wrong on that. That is not the worst you're going to do. It's going to be very interesting how they handle this. They could, and they probably will be, the only SEC job open. I think you should take advantage of that. I think John Summerall would do a fantastic job there. He's now at Tulane. I think you could get him. Maybe not. They were going to get him, and Mark Stoops left last year and went to Texas A&M. I don't think Mark Stoops is a bad coach. I think I would love to have Mark Stoops as an analyst at Texas. I think he'd do a really good job, but I think it's just time to go there. Sometimes you wear out your welcome at places, and I think that's the number one example this year of someone just wearing out their welcome, and I think it's time for them to move on, and I think they're going to. We'll find out, though. Who knows? They may not value football like the way the rest of the SEC does, and I think that will send a message this year. If they're not willing to fire Mark Stoops now, I just don't think they care that much about football. Number four, what does Vandy look like next year? Diego Pavia came in with Jerry Kill and completely transformed this program in 1 year. I think Clarkley had established a decent foundation there, but not a great one. He basically had been doing a little bit more than every other Vanderbilt coach, other than not named James Franklin, was doing. And honestly, Mason as well did a pretty good job. So maybe not. Maybe even didn't even really establish it. But Jerry Kill came in and changed it. Diego Pavia completely transformed it, and he's gone next year. I think he's one of the 3 to 4 best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. You lose that at a place like Vanderbilt, that's going to be hard to replace. He plays with the type of grit and attitude I think you have to play with when you play for a school like Vanderbilt. It's going to be very interesting to see how they replace him. Do they go get a lower level high school prospect, play him his first year? Do they go into the transfer portal? The funny thing about Vanderbilt, they have the money. Do they want to spend the money though on football? I don't think they do. I don't think they have the desire to do that. So it's going to be very interesting what is to come with that football program. Is Jerry Kill stick around? Guys, if you look at Jerry Kill's history, he really doesn't stick around places. He leaves pretty quickly. So it would not shock me if he does decide to retire, leave, whatever he decides to do. He's a good football coach, though. He tends to win wherever he goes. So it's going to be very interesting what Vanderbilt looks like next year. And I hope they look good. I have no hatred towards Vanderbilt. They're one of the SEC teams. I could care less, honestly, what happens to them. If they want to go 9-3 1 year, props. I'll give you a pat on the back. Good job. But if they go 3-9, I really don't care. It's going to be very interesting what happens. If there's any Vanderbilt people, hit me up in the comments. And then who is Georgia? Is Georgia second half versus Alabama? Is Georgia defense whole game versus Texas? What the hell are they? I do not know. I don't know what I'm getting week to week. You play an average Georgia Tech team. You go into 8 overtimes at home. Is that just because that game really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things? I mean, it does matter. If you lose that game and you lose the SEC championship game, you're out of the college football playoff. But if you lose that game, win the SEC championship game, then I guess it doesn't matter. You probably end up with the bye anyways. Well, you would have went up with the bye. There's no scenario where I think the SEC doesn't end up with the bye. But there's no consistency, and Georgia is kind of like the rest of college football, honestly, other than Oregon, who after the first couple of weeks has been pretty consistent. There's no consistency. I think Texas last night was a pretty good example of that, guys. They go into Kyle Field. They play phenomenal in the first half, terrible third quarter, decent fourth quarter. And it's weird. They actually dominated third quarter, but you didn't put up any points. And that's kind of what Georgia's doing too. They'll dominate games, not put up points. Some games they won't dominate. Like UMass ran for over 200 yards versus you. I just really do not understand what is going on with Georgia. They're definitely not what they have been. And I don't even really care about that. But I don't even think you're not even a watered down version of what you've been the last couple of years. The lines of scrimmage aren't as good. Carson Beck throws way too many turnovers. He's been better at that of late. Way too many drops. And they also just make very stupid mistakes in key positions. I don't know what to expect from this team. If this team played their absolute A game, I think they could win. I think they would probably win the national championship. I think Texas, Oregon, and Georgia, if they played their absolute A game, maybe Ohio State throw them in there as well, they can win the national championship. The problem is none of these teams do it on a consistent basis, so I have no clue. That's also why if a team like South Carolina got in, would not shock me if they could win the national championship. Would not shock me at all. I don't think they're going to get in. But those are my 5 takeaways. It's been really a lot of fun to do this for you guys. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Check out our live stream Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time with Tyler and I co-hosting that. Thank you guys again. And I will see you we aren't going to do a power ranking show either, but check out our previews this week for the Georgia versus Texas game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be a lot closer this time. So please hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you.